Hello everybody, third and final video of today. This is going to be my boss battles video. I just want to cover two things. Many people have got in contact with me. First of all, shout out to Marcus for mentioning this, and I don't know, I'm still waiting for the response back on the matter, but you'll probably notice this. In the level 4 health potion here, 2,700 is the value that you heal back. Now that's wrong, because if you go to the potion store and you find the level 4 in here, which is all the way over here, you can see that it says 5,000. So there's a discrepancy, and I don't know if Kabam will answer this. I certainly won't be kind of like buying it with coins to kind of find out whether or not that is indeed the case, because it's a risk factor. And obviously I will mention it with Kabam. Hopefully there's a bit of sorted out with that. I think it would probably be description, because if you go to the likes of the level 3 one, which is down here in the potions thing, it says 1,025. If you go to the Hotel Modoc store, it is a case that if you do the same thing, click on it, it says 1,025. So if I was to hazard a guess, I'd say that as soon as you purchase it, it will say the correct amount, and then for whatever reason that is just an error. And if it's the case it's done on purpose, then that's wrong, and that definitely needs to be sorted out. But I would assume that would be a description error, because it'd be like saying, like, if you purchase it, then you'll get two different types of health potions, which again shouldn't be the case, and it should be one, not the other. So I've been informed that many players aren't exactly seeing the calendar that they should do, the Modoc one. Obviously take to doing tickets and as well the forum. There is an active post, which if I remember, I'll put in the link in the description, so people can obviously update Kabam on there is an issue and they need to see it. And there needs to be an extra day added to this in order to make sure that this is a smooth process. So hopefully that is sorted out very, very soon. Also, by the time this video being released, I should be live streaming on twitch.tv/RichTheMan live. There's going to be a link either in the pinned comment or the description, so you can come across and chat over there. And I'll be live streaming tomorrow on this channel, the main RichTheMan YouTube channel, so make sure to kind of come on by for that one. We'll mainly be doing uncollected, as it's really the only content I think, you know, we should really kind of get blasted through in the interim. Okay, so let's begin with champions that I used against some of the bosses. Now, first of all is Venom the Duck. And Venom the Duck is really nothing really special to write home about, and I ended up using a lot of mystical based champions for this. Archangel, most champions, your Mega Reds, Quakes, anything really this month. It's the usual. You bring out Beardo. You know, the list goes on with champions to use, but obviously against something that's got a high amount of buffs to it, using the likes of buff immunity with Black Widow, Clairvoyant, your Doctor Dooms, Dormammu's off the SP1, and also you got power control with that, but as well, you know, you got Magic and so many others that could be quite good. Stagger champions as well against this. You know, you name it, probably a good champion is for it. Personal space, yeah, relatively fine. I think this champion is pretty much kind of like easy to steamroll through with damage. For this next champion, I wanted to change it up a bit. I wanted to have a bit of fun, especially with stuff that is very much a case of having a tech champion that's got like a heal blocking in its nature for arc overload. And for this, as you can see in the left hand corner, I used the likes of Warlock, but yeah, there's so many others. I accidentally put Green Goblin in. That wasn't meant to be there. Use Green Goblin if you want. But as well, because the champion throws out things when it comes to bleed and bloodletting. Man, if you want to take a bleed and then switch over with Ghost, that's up to you. And obviously, Ghost is still a great champion for most content, let's face it. You know, you got champions like Stark Spidey, that could be a good one. Iron Man Infinity Wars there. Warlock was the champion I used against this, especially with the enemy having tech ascendancy, but arc overload, obviously you've got the infection, which can be put on this champion very, very well, and not to mention the fact you've got power control aspects to it, a little bit of shock here, just great damage overall. I've ranked 2'd my Warlock, and I'm very happy with that decision, and even though it's unawakened, it's still a great champion. And as well, even though the defender's healing abilities cannot be reversed, when this occurs, they're instead only prevented from healing. So obviously, I think that's kind of a good thing to have that infection, because obviously we're suppressing the healing off of the arc overload. It does it static, but yeah, the damage output was just like really good. So Warlock was probably my favorite champion for this. Next up, and the Ronin fight. Now this one was pretty fun. It's a little bit complex, because on the face of it, you kind of go like, okay, well, champions wise, it's kind of like handy to use anything that's got power gain. Not necessarily. Matador really kind of like stops that kind of theory. But in any case, like I ended up using Stark Spidey. I like Stark Spidey. I thought I'd whip out an old school champion and have a bit of fun. And I did have a lot of fun with this, especially with the fact of like, as soon as I built up to the SP2, I built 10 poise charges. It does mean I'm going to smash him with an intense amount of damage. Not essentially needed because you could have any champion throwing off an SP1. I even kind of considered the idea of bringing in the likes of Old Man Logan, especially with an SP1. If I've built up enough of those passive furies and obviously, or passive bleeds, sorry, and then it's the case I've transferred them over, it does mean that I'm going to be able to hit out an amazing amount of damage. And as well, the same thing could be said for the likes of Hyperion. Yes, you won't be able to use the power gain side of things, but the fact is it's all about the intense amount of damage based on the ramp up of Fury attacks, which obviously Hyperion could do. So Hyperion, Old Man Logan, you got so many other champions that ramp up very quickly. You got Corvus Glaive off an SP1, could be enough with a nice critical kind of increase based on having so many missions completed up to the point of getting through this particular difficulty. There are so many options here to take against this, but obviously watch out for any champion that does debuffs, because that's going to be the real stinker when it comes to going up against it. But you know my picks of champions I would like to have used, and obviously I like using my Stark Spidey because, again, breaking up the classics, it's always nice to do that. Okay, now on to one of the new champions, and that's HitMonkey. Now you can see the characters that I was thinking about using. In the end, I just used Archangel. I just felt that was kind of like a good, easy, cheesy option, and it was great to bring back the Archangel for this month. But there are other options. Now, a good counter or good counters for the HitMonkey is going to be bleed immune champions, which obviously Archangel and Warlock would be. Don't underestimate the usage of the delightful Nick Fury, who has some amazing kit that could be good to counter some of this, largely with those tactical charges. And don't underestimate the likes of Mr. Sinister, because he has a really kind of like cool bit of kit, and as well good counters when it comes to critical damage. So if you make a mistake, he's got you covered. Not to mention the fact that you've also got Iceman and Warlock, which are both bleed immune champions and can do good amounts of damage. Now, do watch out, because HitMonkey does have Safeguard. Safeguard is not something that I particularly enjoy, but it wasn't too bad, especially with the likes of Archangel ticking off a good amount of damage. That doesn't really give you much to worry about. But there are some other things to worry about in any case, so that no hit, RC2, each time the defender is knocked down, they gain a cruelty buff. So there could be a really cool option to this that you could even use Morningstar. If you're doing something where you're doing like a build up of persistent charges up to this fight, you're doing a heavy attack method, and what you're doing is you're constantly smacking the enemy down. You're building up power gain, you get an SP2, the enemy has got a load of critical buffs on, so therefore you're smashing with an SP2 and you've probably ticked off a good amount of damage. It's up to you if you want to try that method if you are really struggling, but that gives you several options if for whatever reason you don't have any champion that's bleed immune, Mr. Sinister, Warlock, Iceman, Nick Fury and Archangel. But obviously so many other champions would be great against this. Omega Red could be very good against this as well. And so many much more. That's not proper English, but it's fine. Let's move on to the next fight. Next up, Black Widow Clairvoyant. This fight here wasn't too bad as long as you don't throw the champion to an SP2. Even though, based on the kit or the build up with the nodes, the local nodes, she is more than likely to throw said SP2. But I didn't find that was kind of like being thrown at me quite so much. Champions that really counteract with power control can be quite helpful, like Dr. Doom, Psylocke if you've got her. Not to mention anything else, magic, there's so many that power control. Even Warlock would be quite handy for this. But there's so many others. I ended up using Beardo. I actually quite like that, and as well pairing it up with a few synergies that had things like Petrify, people on the team that obviously work with his signature ability for leadership and was able to put in Petrify. But you could use Blade with the Mystic synergy, and that could be Mephisto or Dormammu. It's up to you. Nick Fury can be quite handy as well. Obviously, it's Nick Fury. So what's the matter with that? Nothing. It's a perfect champion to use. And science champions with the class advantage. You got Void, you got Mr. Fantastic, you got Red Guardian, Leviosa, and the list goes on with helpful champions to take down this fight. For this fight, I did consider the idea like, well, why would I use Blade? And it was like, well, I'm just using him for the synergy. And yes, he would take bleeding effects, so I'd have to kind of keep him at a high power. But the crucial thing is not to bring in bleed champions. Like, I was thinking of bringing Archangel, but the fact is there's no point, because the champion goes into bleed immunity very, very quickly on into the fight. Even one thing that the champion's got, which is defender starts the fight with bleed immunity, which alternates every 10 seconds with poison immunity. When an immunity triggers, it purifies any corresponding effect. So it doesn't really, it's not a fight for Archangel at all. And many other champions that would do poison or bleed type effects. But still, seemed to be a very straightforward fight. Beardo for the win. And now finally on to Tigra. Tigra was a very straightforward, I think very straightforward based on just like another time where I was like, let's just use Archangel for this. But there are a few other options rather than just saying, hey, just do Archangel. I've seen people use Void against this champion. Now, if you do have the likes of She-Hulk, you can do the slow debuff. If you've got slow debuff, and if you've got the, I think it's exhaustion debuff, it can be helpful against a lot of the stuff that the champion does, like miss and unblockable, which is a frustration for a lot of players. There's so many other champions like Sorcerer Supreme, which I don't have, that does a slow debuff, and there are so many others. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it will probably come to me at the most kind of random times of all those champions that do the slow debuff. You could use the likes of Nick Fury, you could use the likes of Doctor Doom. I think that as well, Beardo could be quite fun for this interaction. And any champion really, like Red Guardian, that would be a great champion to do against this, especially because you've got that that unblockable blocking technique and the mechanic in there. And as well, that champion has slow, so hey, that's a double win for that particular champion on this. And maybe I'll kind of like rank up my 4-star version and take it against this fight at some point in the next week or so, if I get the time to do a video like that. But still, this was a nice little fight. As I said, there's so many champions to use against this. Archangel obviously is just a complete goat, and I love that champion. And you could use a 4-star against this. You could use a 5-star. God forbid Caban would ever put in a 6-star, because that obviously would break the game. But you know, other game-breaking things have been in the game in the past, so we'll see what happens in the future. But yeah, those have been my champions I used against some of these bosses, and maybe some I'd recommend as well. And obviously, if you had a different experience, different champions you used, and you found them to be more effective than the ones that I've put in this video, then put it in the comment section down below, because it will help out a fellow summoner that's maybe thinking about, right, well, I'm not sure what champions to really use. I will just slow down some of the specials of those fights, or maybe I've slowed them down in the video when I'm doing the editing process to really slow down the movements of it so you can see. The SP2 of Tigra is very aggressive, and also it just lasts forever, which isn't like too great. So hopefully that's broken down. And as well, at the same time, the real thing I can really say is keep your distance, and champions that interwork with the unblockable are probably better. Ones that suppress things with slow, the slow debuff, maybe the exhaustion debuff, can be very helpful for this particular fight as well. In any case, everybody, thank you very much for watching this video. Check out some previous content over here. I should hopefully be live streaming, but time is ticking, time is going on, and I was hoping to have an early night and prepare for tomorrow's videos. But in any case, we'll see what happens. Thanks very much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.